Hi, welcome back to the lands of Middle-earth. Today we're going to be looking at the Grey Mountains campaign module. This one, number 3113, was actually the last campaign module of this particular editions before they reinvented themselves and went with a different style and makeup. This one was created in 1992. I think I paid $20 for this at a place called Imperial Hobbies. It's the first book in a long time that doesn't have Agnes McBride as the cover artist. It's got some guy named D. Martin. Now in this book you get the 17 by 22 full color map, 9 challenging adventures, detailed layouts, in-depth information, stat and background information. So let's take a look at the map first. So with the map you get to see the Grey Mountains. I don't know why they didn't just make this, take out the Iron Hills portion of it and just had the Grey Mountains from one side to the other, east to west. They could have did that, but you can see how they have the western Grey Mountains where Gundabad is on the. They have the western Grey Mountains. Then up there, it's basically the northern Mirkwood map. They just cut out one section of it to show the western Grey Mountains, and it has all the Grey Mountains up there and the Withered Hearth. So they went a little further north than the Mirkwood map. On the other side, you basically get the same thing, but then you have the key. The key tells you which dragons there are. Now, only a few dragons were ever mentioned by Tolkien. Smaug being one of them, and Scatha the Worm were the only two that were actually ever mentioned by him. But there was probably more, and that's what they're basing it on. Plus, they give you the locations of some fictional dwarven citadels, as well as you also have your obvious ones of Erebor and the Iron Hills. So, go with credits. They got a different team of authors and editors and developers, though Jessica Ney and Pete Fenlon are still prominent in this. You get your table of contents, guidelines, definition terms, adapting the campaign, yada yada yada. The same stuff as before. Converting stats, converting combat abilities, converting spell lists, locks, and traps. Everything that every book has had before. Nothing new there. Then it gives you the introduction to the Grey Mountains. Now the Grey Mountains becomes important after the fall of Khazad-dûm to the Balrog and the wanderings of Durin's folk. Now most of Durin's folk, they do head to Erebor and start excavating there, but then groups of them move off into the Grey Mountains, which is richer in mineral wealth, and eventually the seat of Durin moves north as well. So not much happens in the elder days of the First and Second Age. The Grey Mountains is the last remaining part of Morgoth's Iron Mountains. And not much happened there in the Second Age, as it was far from any real fighting. Only with the foundation of Angmar in the Third Age does the Grey Mountains become more important. Now it says that in 1440 a small band of Durin's folk traveled north from Khazad-dûm and established a silver mine at Mount Gon-Megalem. And this mine, Silver Plunge, was the one that Scatha the Worm took over. So there's the first reference to him. Then it has the fall of Angmar, the trials of Durin's folk, as Nain the First was slain in a sortie against the Balrog and the dwarves fled Moria. They came to the Grey Mountains around 1994 of the Third Age, and Erebor was founded around 1999 of the Third Age. So the dwarves are scattered all throughout the Grey Mountains and Erebor, and a few even go to the Iron Hills. All this digging around in their colonies wakes up the dragons, and the dragons start plundering the small individual holdings and taking the wealth. And eventually, again, you have tales of Scatha the Worm. It goes into a guy named Narvi the Fifth, whose ancestor created the dwarves of Western Moria. So they have Narvi the Fifth in the Legend of Celebast. And then the Grey Mountains in other times from 2600 to the fall of Erebor. So by 2600 the dwarves had fled the Grey Mountains because there was too many dragons there. And they fled back to Erebor. And that's when Smaug comes. Smaug comes rushing down in 2770 to take Erebor. And then we go to the close of the Third Age, with the death of Smaug in 2941, the Battle of Five Armies, and the destruction of most of the orcs of the north. Alright, so then they have the timeline of all the things that take place. Not very big. Then it goes into the geography and ecology. So you have the Grey Mountains, the Narrows, the Northern Waste, the Withered Hearth, which is this part up here, up to the north. Climate and weather patterns. Obviously it's going to be damn cold up there. Then the ecology of the flora and the fauna. Being a northern country, it's going to have wolves, north bears, Lysander. They got snow lions, so they're talking about snow leopards. And of course reindeer herds and caribou herds, mountain goats. Then it goes into the dark creatures, so it doesn't really talk a lot. Obviously, you're going to have hill trolls, cave trolls, and snow trolls, which are different. And of course, you have orcs. Fell beast. Never heard of fell beast up there, but they're putting them there. And then the undead. Because there are a lot of Northman holy sites and burial grounds that date back some 5,000 years. Alright? So evil things have crept into them. But the most important evil thing are the dragons. So they're claiming there are fire drakes, cold drakes, ice drakes, cave drakes, and marsh drakes, and rain drakes. Winged drakes and non-winged drakes. So there's different characteristics. And it goes into the physical characteristics of the dragons, their nature, the nature of the dragons, and their general features. My favorite, however, is the dragons of note. They talk about other dragons and how they work. Ando Anka is a cold drake. Now these dragons fled from the first age after the fall of Morgoth. You got Angareth, Baranax, Deloman, Hyarluka, Intagast, Kuzdrepa, and it gives you the location so you can pinpoint it on the map and what they've been doing. Lucareth, Loma, Scatha, who's called the eldest surviving son of Glanrung from the first age. He's a cold drake. Then it has Smog the Golden, of the line of Encalagon the Black, Thrakma, Uriel, and then it gives you a couple of lesser drakes. So in Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, it just meant, in the Unfinished Tales, it just basically mentions Smog being used that could be of use to Sauron. You think Sauron would have gone further north and contacted a few other dragons? There couldn't have been too many left at that time that were active by the War of the Ring. Next we got peoples and cultures. So you got the Bjornings, who are called the Bejabar, who are ancient Northmen. And then of course you have the dwarves. Ice Orcs, who are ancient Morgothic orcs who live in the Grey Mountains or further north beyond. And they constantly raid the Low Ten and Low South people. So it goes into great description about the Ice Orcs. Then we got politics and power, the situation in the north. 1640, again, that key date. But by 1640, there were no orcs in the north like that. By 1640, there were no real dwarven colonies other than the one at Silver Plunge. So the government is basically between the Bjornings, the orcs. There are two tribes in the Grey Mountains. And then there's the Ice Orcs for the north. And a few dwarven colonies. And it has one of the dwarven characters of note of this time period. It has Dane the First. So this is later in 2585. So it goes into different time periods. So this is closer to the end. He's the overconfident son of Nain II, the slayer of Lucareth. Because it does say in the Lord of the Rings that Nain II did slay a dragon. And Dane I is hoping to become just like that. Then it has Thrar, the middle son of the king, and Thrar, the crown prince. So this is Thrar the First, who would later rule the Lonely Mountain at the time of Smog. And then it goes to Borin. So that's the father of Fundin, who's the father of Balin and Dwalin. Then you have the Ice Orcs under Dekalamog and Urdak. So there is a heavy Ice Orc presence in the area. And it gives you some more Orcish leaders. And the Bjornen leader, who's in the region. And finally, Narvi the Fifth, who becomes a ghost of all things. Though dwarves never become ghosts. Though in the Iron Crown, they decide to make a few dwarven ghosts. So section 7 talks about places of note. Nor Doom is a typical dwarven citadel. It mostly reads like Moria, the Moria book. It has different levels. So Durin's folk were scattered all throughout the Grey Mountains, with a few at Erebor. And more upper level halls. It's like, this is what they should have did with Erebor. They should have had an Erebor book. This should have been the Erebor book, actually. I don't know why they went to the Grey Mountains, because it's not really mentioned that much in Tolkien's work. Now, it is pretty cool to adventure in there. I never really explored this with a group of players. I just have so many campaign modules and so many things. I have the entire collection that I just never got around to going to the Grey Mountains very much. Plus, I don't like freezing my ass off. So we never really played this per se, but I do think it's a very cool book. But I do like the diagrams they give for everything. An old throne hall, Hall of Wonder, council chambers. This would actually, you could use this for an Erebor, almost. Kind of mix and match. Then you got the halls of smithing. I thought the Peter Jackson movie did a pretty good job of giving different layouts for the halls of Erebor. Didn't like the fight scene where the dwarves try and take on the dragon, because they never do that. They're kind of cowardly. But Peter Jackson wanted to make it more exciting, and he took a lot of liberties with how it went. And you have a treasury room, which is kind of cool. Bar works. The gates of Glowin. The Silver Road, the Arch of Thorn the First. And there you go, the Gates of Glowin. That's kind of cool. Chapel to Aul, the Maker of the Dwarves, Dwarfen Lodgings, Dane's Hall. Then you have the Fortress of the Ice Orcs. Okay, so it's pretty cool. A first age fortress. And it talks about how Throckmaw the Black, a winged fire drake, gained control over the Ice Orcs. And they bowed down and worshipped him as a god. That's always fun. That's usually what happens. Then it has the various levels of Kula Dulakrath. Level 2. Again, just describing the layouts and what different rooms are. And it gives a lot more detail. So this book has lots of details. Like how the fact they have a harem. When you're talking about orcs, you have a harem of 100 female ice orcs. One group of guys I was playing with in high school, I had one of them accidentally stumble upon the harem, and as he tried to get out, the ladies and the orcs and the orc women in the harem grabbed him, and he had some fun. Another guy got captured, and he had to spend some time being a babysitter in an imp nursery until he could get away, or they rescued him. Alright, then it takes you to level 3, the Warlord's Tower, the King's Tower. Quite standard stuff. Tower of Darkness. So it's pretty cool as far as a first stage fortress goes. Then you come to Celebos, and this is one of the major campaigns or adventures. Narvi V went a little nuts and got greedy, looking for mithril, but all he found was silver. And it gives you the huge map. It gives you a huge layout for that, which is good. Talks about the various locations and rooms. All standard stuff. And then we have Steelfall, which is another area. The Lair of the Dragon Uriel. And that is pretty cool as well. Dwelling of Baranax. So you can go fight dragons, which is cool. Then it has Bur Thurazig, which is a Northman town. Part of the Gramus clans. It doesn't really give you much detail on that, other than avenues of trade. Finally, we get the adventures in search of silver. So you got to look for the lost colony of Celebast in the northeastern Grey Mountains anytime after 2110. And this is when Narvi went crazy and all that stuff. Then you do Vengeance. So you got to try and kill Baranax. You have to try and kill him in the Narrows. Or you could go after the Dark Ice Fortress. The Legend of Steel Fall. So you're going after another dragon for Dragon Wealth. So basically you just adventure for Dragon Wealth. Or lost dwarven artifacts. Under Siege, the Grey Mountain colonies. So Nora Doom and Silver Pit. And you're trying to get out. And finally you have the Trail of the Getch. Not sure what the Gretch is, but just an orc raid to me. And it gives you a layout of Bur Thurazig. And then you have to follow the orcs to their trail. And you have to follow them into the orc cave. So basically you're just rescuing people. Or getting revenge on some orcs who happen to come into contact with you. Nothing too special there. You could also adventure to the Giant. There's a giant up there. Something you don't really see too much. Then the last one you have is called the Trader's Proving of a Dwarven Treasure. And there's a whole bunch of NPCs in that. And you get more NPCs. I never played this adventure, so I really don't know much about it. I've read this book long ago. I haven't done a reread in so long. So it gives you more layouts for that adventure, a beacon tower. I wish I had played this more. Tried playing this, but it is what it is. You get more caves and more orcs and trolls. So you could use this for any campaign anywhere else. You got tasks, starting players. So this almost looks like an adventure book, how it's laying out. I think this was originally supposed to be just an adventure book, but then they decided to make this into a campaign module. So you have more of them. The Spy from Angmar is the 16th adventure. So that's obviously with the Northmen, because the Angmaran supply trains went up through the Grey Mountains and over towards the east, past the Iron Hills. So Angmar had long supply trains. They had to go way out of their way, and the interdiction of even one or two supply trains in a given season would have seriously affected Angmar. Gives you all the NPCs and the layouts and the far field. So it's another encampment or town. The Inn, the Wailing Wind, the Griffin's Wing. I don't think there are ever griffins in Middle-earth, but oh well. So that's another inn. And you get the tasks. You get encounters, guests at the inns, all sorts of characters. Finally, Beasts and Blackmail. Another adventure. So there's a lot of adventures in this. There's so many things you can do up here. A fortress probably with a dragon or a fell beast. This is probably a fell beast one. Tower of the Wolf Friend. And he has a fell beast. So it gives more and more of those. Yeah, the fell beast cave. And then it says other suggested adventures. This is what I was more interested in. This is the master NPC table. Orcs, Ice Orcs, Northmen, Dwarves. Then you have the people from the various adventures that they had. And finally, what I like best, the Dwarven Master Military Table. So it gives you the Dwarves of Silver Plunge, the Dwarves of Nord Doom, and the Dwarves of Thundercleft, the Northern Beejabar, the Ashrag Orcs, and the Ice Orcs, so how many there are. And then some more Orcish clans, and finally the Ice Orcs of Deepcleft Mining. So I thought that was pretty cool. And you could use this Master Military Table anywhere. So that's what I was most interested in. And then you have, of course, your Master Beast Table, Master Dragon Table, which is pretty cool, and the Encounter Table, as well as the people who you're going to meet in certain parts of what area, and a random feature table. So you have all these things, as well as prices, and then it goes into... So that's it in a nutshell. I didn't really explore the Grey Mountains at all as a gaming thing. Wish I had. But I do like the fact they explored the Dwarven sites in the Grey Mountains and the dragons themselves. I thought that was super cool. But anyway, any Middle-earth role-playing fans out there, let me know if you guys actually tried playing this module and how it went. Thought of it in the comments section. And until next time, this has been Roman Day, so I'm out of here.